Why are the doors blocked? Court starts in minutes. Keep the entrance clear.
Someone's coming through the rain.
Let him inside. Security's already watching him.
Sir, are you here for court?
I am expected upstairs.
You're soaked.
The walk was longer than expected.
Do you have identification?
In the front pocket.
Security will ask for it.
Then Stop right there. Good morning. Identification. Here.
That envelope has a state seal.
I didn't ask you.
The number is verifiable.
I decide what gets verified.
The terminal is open.
Back away. Wait outside, old man. Outside.
Officer, the seal is valid.
Stay out of this. You don't give orders here. Read the first line. Move. Am I being denied entry? You're being told to leave. On what recorded basis?
He hasn't raised his voice.
Maybe call administration. That a threat. It is a record. It is.
Someone needs to call upstairs.
I have court. So do I.
You saw the seal. I saw a document.
You saw enough. Nobody speaks for him.
Then file a complaint.
Have some.
The number is loading.
Cancel it. Let it finish. You're done here.
Wait, the credential is active.
Active for what? Look at the state seal. Turn that screen off. Do not touch the record. And what?
Wait outside, old man, the officer snarled, blocking the courthouse doors while attorneys watched in silence. The elderly black man tightened his grip on a worn leather briefcase, but never raised his voice. Why did the deputy ignore the sealed credentials in his hand? Why did every witness look away when the officer threatened to remove him? And what was hidden inside the silver pocket watch he checked as the clock struck 9? By noon, that same officer would stand beneath the state seal, hearing his conduct read aloud. But first, one quiet man had to decide whether dignity could survive a system determined not to see him. Stay until the final ruling changes more than one badge. The badge struck the oak table once, then again. Nolan Price kept his palm over it as if the metal might slide away. Above him, the state seal caught the courtroom lights, every raised edge sharp as ice. "Officer Price," the clerk said, "you were directed to surrender all court-issued credentials. I was told to report. Nobody said this was final." A whisper moved through the gallery and died. Attorneys filled the back benches. 2 deputies stood near the side door. Neither looked at him. In the front row, the elderly black man from the entrance sat with his leather briefcase between his shoes. His charcoal coat had dried, leaving a line along one sleeve. A pocket watch rested in his hand. Nolan stared at him. "Why is he here?" The clerk did not follow his gaze. "Place the badge on the table." "I asked a question." "And the court gave you an instruction." His fingers tightened. The badge tapped the wood a 3rd time. Elijah Mercer lifted the watch. It had stopped at 8:17. Nolan pointed toward him. "That man caused a security incident. He ignored a lawful order, presented questionable documents, and refused to cooperate." One attorney lowered his eyes. Another shifted a yellow file over his knees. Elijah said nothing. "You all saw him," Nolan continued. "No escort. No appointment. No reason to enter the administrative wing." From the witness row, Ava Delgado drew a breath. Her chair creaked, but she did not stand. The clerk opened a red folder. "At 8:06 a.m., you were shown credentials bearing a verifiable number. At 8:09, you declined to contact administration. At 8:14, you ordered the visitor outside. That is not what happened." A monitor flickered on. The image showed rain on the glass doors, Nolan's arm toward the sidewalk, and Elijah beneath the awning gripping his briefcase. Nolan looked back at him. "You planned this." Elijah closed the watch. "No." It was the first word he had spoken. "Then why didn't you tell me who you were?" "I did. You handed me paper. I handed you my identification. You could have called someone." Elijah's thumb crossed a scratch in the case. "So could you." The clerk waited. "Officer Price, remove your hand." Nolan looked toward Sergeant Wade Harlan. Harlan's face had gone pale under the fluorescent light. He turned a blank page. "Sergeant," Nolan said, "tell them." Harlan did not answer. The air system clicked off. Without its hum, small sounds became unbearable. A sleeve rustling, a shoe scraping, Nolan's ring ticking against the badge. The side door opened. Everyone stood except Elijah. A robed judge entered, followed by the court administrator and an investigator carrying a sealed evidence box. Nolan searched their faces for some sign this could still be corrected. The judge took the bench, but remained standing. "The record will reflect," he said, "that the man seated in the front row was detained here for 73 minutes while this courtroom prepared for his arrival." Nolan's mouth opened. The judge looked directly at him. "And the record will reflect why." At 7:02 that morning, long before the badge touched the table, Elijah Mercer stood alone in his bedroom, fastening the cuff of a shirt his wife had chosen 12 years earlier. At 7:02 a.m., Elijah Mercer fastened the cuff of a white shirt his wife had bought 12 years earlier and found one button hanging by a thread. He sat on the bed, needle-pinched between fingers that had signed thousands of orders without trembling. Rain tapped the window, and the room smelled faintly of cedar. "You would have fixed this in 10 seconds, he told the empty chair. His phone vibrated. "Dad, are you dressed?" Naomi asked. "I have reached the button stage." "That means no." "It means progress." Her laugh softened, then stopped. "The plaque is here. They covered it, but I saw the corner. Mom's name looks good." Elijah glanced at the silver pocket watch beside the lamp. Ruth had given it to him when he became an appellate judge. Since her funeral, he opened it only when no one was watching. "I'll be there before 8:30. "You said that last week." "I was not chief administrative judge last week." "You were still my father." The needle slipped. A bead formed on his thumb. He pressed it into a handkerchief before it marked the cuff. Naomi lowered her voice. "You don't have to speak at the clinic opening." "Yes, I do." "You can let someone else read the dedication." "No." On the dresser stood a photograph of Ruth laughing beside a courthouse vending machine, one heel in her hand, after a 12-hour hearing. "Then promise me you won't disappear into work afterward," Naomi said. Elijah looked at the empty half of the bed. "I promise." He ended the call and reached for the watch. The latch resisted. When it opened, a folded square of paper shifted behind Ruth's photograph. He had never seen it. The note carried the faded scent of her lavender hand cream. "Eli, if they ever give you the biggest room in the building, remember the people waiting in the smallest one." He read it twice. The radiator clicked. A truck groaned into reverse outside. A knock sounded. His neighbor, Mrs. Bell, stood in the hall with a covered plate. "You're leaving without breakfast again." "I was considering toast." "You were considering coffee." She handed him warm biscuits wrapped in a towel. Butter and pepper rose through the cloth. "Big first day?" "Only a different office." "Naomi says they're naming something for Ruth." "A legal clinic." Mrs. Bell studied him. "Then don't be late." At 7:34, Elijah placed the note inside the watch and carried the plate downstairs. On the kitchen table lay an envelope stamped with the state seal, his temporary credentials, and a route card for the judge's entrance. His driver called. "Judge Mercer, I'm outside." Elijah looked through the curtain at the sedan idling under the street lamp. "Thank you, Thomas, but take the morning off." "Sir, security requested an escort." "I know. Is there a problem?" "No, I want to use the public entrance." A pause. "On your first day?" "Especially today." He tucked the sealed order into his worn leather briefcase beside Ruth's dedication speech. The clasp snapped shut with a tired metallic click. At the door, he checked the time. 7:41. Mrs. Bell called from across the hall. "Umbrella?" Elijah opened the building door. Cold rain touched his face. "I won't be outside long," he said. At 7:58 a.m., The city bus sighed against the curb before the Redmont courthouse. Elijah stepped into rain thin to needles. The judge's entrance waited beneath the covered east drive, but he turned toward the public doors, worn briefcase in his left hand, unopened umbrella in his right. Inside, warm air smelled of wet wool and burnt coffee. Shoes squeaked across marble. "Morning," said the officer behind the security desk. Nolan Price, 36, clean-shaven, looked first at Elijah's charcoal coat, then at the scuffed briefcase. "Good morning," Elijah replied. "Court services opens at 9. "I'm not here for court services." Price held out 2 fingers. "Identification." Elijah set down the umbrella and reached inside his coat. Cold drops fell from the hem, gathering on the marble between his shoes. A young clerk near the elevators slowed, blue folders against her chest and a red pen through her dark bun. Price glanced at her. "Ava, if he wants legal aid, send him downstairs." "He hasn't said what he needs." "I can tell." Elijah placed a temporary credential on the counter. "I'm expected in the administrative wing before 8:30. Price left the card untouched. "Name?" "Elijah Mercer." "Appointment?" "Yes." "With whom?" "The court administrator has the schedule." Price leaned back. "That isn't an answer." Ava shifted the folders. "I can call upstairs." "No." Price picked up the credential by one corner. "This format isn't current." "It was issued yesterday," Elijah said. "By who?" "The State Judicial Office." Price gave a dry laugh. "That's a big office." Behind them, 2 attorneys removed belts and watches. One noticed the embossed seal, then looked away. Ava came closer. Her badge read, "Ava Delgado, Clerk." There was a notice about temporary credentials in the morning bulletin. Price's jaw tightened. "Then read it after you deliver those files." "I already did." He faced her. "Are you working security now?" "No." "Then don't create a problem where there isn't one." Elijah looked at the credential. The state seal caught the ceiling light, then vanished beneath Price's thumb. "What is the purpose of your visit?" Price asked. "To begin work." "At your age?" Ava's fingers tightened. One folder bent at the corner. Elijah answered. "This morning, yes." The scanner beeped twice. A woman near the entrance apologized when her bag caught on a tray. Rainwater spread beneath the mat, carrying the smell of the street into the lobby. Price slid the credential back, but kept one finger on it. "Administrative offices don't take walk-ins." "I am aware." "Then you understand why this doesn't add up." Elijah reached for the card. Price pulled it away. "Not yet." Ava said, "Officer Price, I can verify the number in less than a minute." He turned toward the monitor. The verification field was already open. "I said I'll handle it." The brass clock clicked to 8:04. Beyond the elevators, a microphone gave a soft burst of feedback. Then a woman's voice said, "In memory of Ruth Mercer." Elijah's hand stopped above the counter. Ava heard it too. Her eyes moved from the elevator to his face. Price typed into the visitor log. Under reason for entry, he entered one word: problem. "Problem?" Elijah asked. Nolan Price kept typing. "That's the category. You have not verified my identification." "I'm verifying behavior first." The brass clock moved to 8:05. Rain rattled against the glass doors, and a draft curled around Elijah's damp cuffs. From the atrium, the microphone crackled. "In memory of Ruth Mercer," Naomi's voice repeated. Elijah's hand closed around his briefcase. Ava stepped nearer. "Officer Price, the bulletin said temporary judicial credentials would be active today." "I'm handling it." "You haven't entered the number." "I know how the system works." Elijah placed the sealed envelope beside the keyboard. The appointment order will confirm it. Price pushed it back, unopened. Anyone can carry an envelope. A line had formed behind them. A woman shifted a sleeping child. An older man removed his cap. 2 attorneys checked their phones while pretending not to listen. 1. Marcus Shaw, 41, broad-shouldered in a navy suit, glanced at the raised seal. "Officer," Marcus said, "that looks like a state appointment packet." Price turned. "Counselor, do you want to miss arraignments?" Marcus checked the clock. "No?" "Then keep moving." The scanner chirped. Marcus placed his case on the belt, but his eyes stayed on Elijah. Price lifted the credential. "This says administrative access. You have no escort, no confirmed appointment, and no staff badge." "The card is the badge," Elijah said. "It is temporary." "Temporary does not mean invalid." Price's mouth tightened. "You don't explain security procedure to me." Elijah answered softly. "Then follow it." Ava's red pen slipped from her bun and struck the marble. Price stood. "Step away from the desk." "Return my identification." "You'll get it when I'm done." "Then finish the verification." Price pointed toward the entrance. "Wait outside, old man." No one moved. The woman stared at the floor. The older man twisted his cap. Marcus stood beyond the scanner, belt still unfastened. Elijah looked at his credential beneath Price's palm. "It is raining." "There's an awning." "I am expected upstairs." "You are expected nowhere until I say otherwise." Ava whispered, "Nolan." He faced her. "Do not undermine me in front of visitors." Elijah buttoned his coat. The top button resisted twice before catching. He picked up the umbrella, but left the sealed envelope on the counter. "You forgot this," Ava said. "No," Elijah replied. "He did." Price shoved the envelope into the briefcase opening. Its edge bent against Ruth's dedication speech. "Take your property and go." The automatic doors parted with a mechanical sigh. Cold air crossed the lobby, carrying the smell of wet concrete. Elijah stepped beneath the awning, where rain hammered the metal roof and swallowed Naomi's first words. Marcus stopped near the doors. "Sir," he called, "do you want me to contact someone?" Elijah turned. "You already had the chance." Marcus's hand fell from his coat button. Price pressed the control. The glass panels slid shut between them, sealing the warmth, the witnesses, and Ruth's name inside. Through the rain-streaked glass, Elijah watched Ava reach for the verification terminal. Price placed his hand over the keyboard. Ava kept her hand above the keyboard until the glass doors closed. "Move," Nolan said. "You still haven't checked the number." "I said move." Outside, Elijah stood beneath the awning while rain blew sideways against his coat. Through the glass, he could see the verification box remained empty. Ava lowered her voice. "Let him back in." "1 minute." Nolan glanced at the line. "You want to run this checkpoint?" "No. I want us to follow the bulletin." He lifted his paper cup. No steam rose from it. "Fine." The doors opened. Elijah returned with rain shining on his silver hair and water beneath his collar. He set the briefcase on the counter. Nolan pointed at the envelope. "Open it." "You could verify the credential first." "Open it." Elijah broke the seal carefully. The paper was thick and embossed. He unfolded only the first third. "Order of appointment," the heading read. Ava leaned closer. Beneath it, the words Chief Administrative Judge were visible before Nolan pressed the page flat. "Printed letterhead," he said. "Anyone can make this." "The seal is raised," Ava replied. "So are wedding invitations." Elijah watched him. "Read the signature block." "I don't take instructions from visitors." "You asked for the document." "I asked you to open it." I didn't say it proved anything. Someone at the back muttered, "This is taking forever." Nolan lifted the page toward the light, then dropped it beside his coffee. A dark ring had formed beneath the cup, inches from the state seal. At 8:11, Marcus Shaw came back through the scanner. "My hearing was moved," he said. "Did you verify him?" Nolan did not look up. "Security matter." Marcus studied the heading. "That appointment language is standard." "Are you authenticating state documents now?" "No." "Then why are you here?" Marcus's eyes met Elijah's, then shifted to the clock. "I was checking whether he needed counsel." Elijah folded his wet umbrella. Water clicked onto the tile. "Do I?" he asked. Marcus opened his mouth. The scanner sounded behind him. Nolan smiled. "He has no confirmed business here. That is the only fact that matters." Ava tapped the blank field. His number would confirm it. Enough. She did not move. Nolan's chair rolled back. "Ms. Delgado, take your files upstairs. I can call Ms. Cole. You can obey a direct instruction." Marcus stepped aside for another attorney. "Ava, maybe let him handle it." The words landed more quietly than Nolan's order. Elijah looked at Marcus. "You recognized the seal." Marcus tightened his grip on the case. "I recognized the format." "And that was not enough?" "I don't know the circumstances." "No," Elijah said. "You know the room." Marcus lowered his eyes. Nolan pushed the order across the counter. The page stopped beside the cold coffee, one corner touching the brown ring. "Here is what happens next," he said. "You empty the briefcase, or you leave." Ava stared at the document. The inked signature at the bottom remained folded out of sight. Elijah rested both hands on the worn leather clasp. Behind him, the line went silent again. Then Nolan reached across the counter and opened the briefcase himself. The brass clasp snapped against Nolan's thumb. "Do not touch my property," Elijah said. Nolan pulled the briefcase toward him. "Then you should have opened it when instructed." "I did not refuse a lawful search." "You refused cooperation." He tipped the case. Folders struck the marble in a fan of cream and blue. A fountain pen rolled beneath the desk. Ruth's dedication speech landed near the wet entrance mat, followed by a framed photograph that fell face down. A visitor near the scanner gave a nervous laugh. No one joined him. Ava stepped around the counter. That was unnecessary. "Stay behind the line." Elijah lowered himself carefully, one knee touching the cold floor. A muddy drop rested on the back of the photograph. Marcus bent to help, then stopped when Nolan raised a hand. "Leave it. He can collect everything after inspection." Elijah picked up the photograph anyway. "Moam!" Ruth was laughing beside a vending machine, one shoe in her hand. A wet footprint ended inches from her face. He wiped the glass with his sleeve. The lobby seemed to contract around that small motion. Ava crouched for the speech. "Mr. Mercer." "Please don't," he said. She froze. He checked the wooden frame for a crack, then placed it inside his coat. Then he gathered the loose pages into a precise stack. Nolan nudged a folder with his shoe. "What are these?" "Administrative reports." "For what?" "The court." "That's vague." "It is accurate." Nolan lifted the dedication speech. The first line read, "For Ruth, who believed a courthouse should feel less frightening when someone finally listened." "You wrote this?" "Yes." "You're giving a speech?" "Yes." "Where?" "In the atrium." The microphone beyond the elevators gave a soft burst of feedback. Nolan folded the paper down the middle, though it had been flat before. "There's no public event on my sheet." "It is not public." "Then you don't belong there." Marcus stepped forward. "Officer, The name matches the memorial announcement. I told you to move along. And you were told there's a ceremony for Ruth Mercer. I don't care whose ceremony it is. The words carried through the lobby. The older man by the doors removed his cap. The visitor who had laughed stared at his shoes. Elijah aligned the folders, rose slowly, and returned them to the case. Only the silver watch remained on the marble. Nolan reached for it. Elijah closed his hand around it first. That stays with me. What is it? A watch. Open it. No. Nolan leaned closer. You don't decide what I inspect. It contains no threat. You expect me to take your word? Elijah looked at the cold coffee, the bent appointment order, and Ruth's speech creased under Nolan's palm. I expected you to read. Ava inhaled sharply. Nolan pulled a yellow form from beneath the keyboard and wrote Elijah's name across the top in hard block letters. What is that? Ava asked. A trespass notice. You cannot issue that before verification. Watch me. He took Elijah's temporary credential and slipped it into his shirt pocket. Elijah extended his hand. Return it. Nolan clicked his pen. Not until I'm finished removing you from this building. Nolan pressed the yellow form flat. Full name? You have it. Answer. Elijah Mercer. Address? Elijah gave it. Ava stood beside the counter. His credential is still in your pocket. It's evidence. Of what? Possible misrepresentation. Elijah glanced at the empty verification field. You could resolve that in seconds. Nolan capped his pen. You are being warned not to enter restricted areas. I entered only the public checkpoint. You claimed access you could not prove. The proof is in your pocket. A door behind security opened. Sergeant Wade Harlan stepped out, gray at the temples, chewing mint gum. What's holding the line? Nolan raised the form. Unverified visitor. Refused instructions. Possible forged credential. Ava said. It hasn't been checked. Harlan looked at her instead of the screen. Why not? Nolan won't enter the number. Harlan skimmed the form, then studied Elijah's wet coat. Sir, collect your belongings and leave. My identification is being withheld. You'll receive it after review. By whom? Security. Elijah nodded toward the monitor. Then begin. We don't conduct reviews in front of a crowd. Trays clattered against the scanner. The line moved again, but no one spoke above a murmur. Marcus remained near the elevators. Ava caught his eye. Say something. He tightened his grip on his case. Sergeant, administration should be called. Harlan's gum clicked. Counselor, your courtroom is upstairs. So is the office that can verify him. The elevator bell sounded. Marcus looked toward it, then lowered his eyes. Elijah's phone rang, a soft piano phrase beneath the scanner's hum. He reached for it. Nolan stepped closer. Hands where I can see them. It is my daughter. You can call her outside. You say I cannot leave without my identification? Then don't answer. The screen glowed through the fabric. Daughter. One ring. She is waiting for me in this building, Elijah said. Harlan checked the clock. You should have arranged that before causing a disturbance. 2 rings. Ava's folders bent beneath her fingers. He didn't cause this. Go upstairs before this becomes a personnel matter. 3 rings. The atrium microphone carried Naomi's distant voice into the lobby. My father was supposed to stand beside me this morning. Elijah's fingers curled once, then flattened. 4 rings. The phone went dark. For a moment, only rain and the conveyor belt remained. Nolan tore the yellow copy from the pad. Sign. Elijah read the notice. Under conduct, Nolan had written, aggressive, deceptive, non-compliant. He placed it down. I will not sign a false statement. Harlan moved closer. Peppermint cut through wet wool. Then we document refusal. Document the credential first. Nolan folded the notice and tucked it beside the card in his pocket. Harlan opened the side gate. Move him out of the lobby. Put him in the downstairs waiting room. Ava stared at him. He isn't under arrest. No one said he was. Then why can't he leave? Harlan's gaze dropped to the briefcase. Because now we need to know exactly who he is. Applause rose from the atrium for Ruth Mercer as Nolan pointed Elijah toward the basement corridor. The basement door closed behind Elijah with a soft thud. Nolan pointed to a molded chair beneath a fluorescent tube. Sit. Am I free to leave? When we finish. That is not an answer. Harlan pulled the door nearly shut. You are being held while we verify your identity. Then verify it. We will. When? Harlan's gum clicked. When staff is available. The room had no windows, only a gray table bolted to the floor and a vent breathing cold air against Elijah's damp collar. Paint peeled near the baseboard. He set his briefcase beside the chair. Nolan held out his palm. Phone. No. You don't make calls during a security review. You told me I was not under arrest. You aren't. Then the phone stays with me. Let him keep it. No calls until we return. You cannot impose both conditions, Elijah said. Harlan opened the door. Watch us. The latch clicked. Elijah waited until their footsteps faded, then woke the screen. Naomi had called twice and left one message. Before he could play it, sound traveled through the vent. Applause, a microphone squeal, then his daughter's voice. My mother believed a courthouse should be the one place where no frightened person is treated as an inconvenience. Elijah sat. The metal frame was cold through his trousers. She carried extra pens because people's hands shook when they signed forms. She learned the names of janitors, clerks, and families waiting for news. Elijah opened the silver watch. Ruth's photograph smiled beneath the glass. Her note rested behind it. He checked the time. 8:16. His thumb moved to Samuel Hart. One call to the senior judge would open the door. Another to Diana Cole would bring the administrative office downstairs. He pressed Samuel's name. The call button glowed green. From the vent came Naomi's voice. My father taught law. My mother taught him where justice begins. Elijah did not press it. The second hand passed 12, shuddered, and stopped. 8:17. He tapped the watch against his palm. Nothing. The silence after Naomi's sentence hurt more than the applause. He pictured her looking toward the atrium entrance, one hand on the covered plaque while strangers watched her wait. The door opened 6 inches. Nolan looked in. Ready to cooperate? I have cooperated. You still haven't explained why you need the administrative wing. I did. You said you work here. I do. Doing what? The credential answers that. Not anymore. What does that mean? Nolan glanced toward the hall. The number returned no active employee. You entered it? We checked. Show me. This is not a courtroom. No, Elijah said. In a courtroom, the record would matter. Nolan's mouth hardened. Stay seated. The door shut again. Elijah placed his phone face down beside the stopped watch and breathed through the cold ache in his hands. Then Harlan's voice came from the corridor. Remove Mercer from the visitor log before administration comes down. Nolan answered. Lower. What if they already saw it? Then make it look like he never cleared the entrance. A printer started beyond the wall. Elijah turned the phone over and pressed record. The printer beyond the wall stopped with a final click. Elijah kept the phone flat on the table while the recording timer moved. In the corridor, Harlan lowered his voice. "Change the entry to visitor declined screening." "He passed the scanner," Nolan said, "then write that he left before verification." "What about Delgado?" "She saw confusion. Nothing more." Their footsteps receded. Elijah ended the recording and emailed the file to himself. The fluorescent tube buzzed above him. Upstairs, Ava stood at the verification terminal with Elijah's number written in red ink across her palm. Nolan had locked his screen, but a clerk station remained active. She entered the digits. No match appeared. Ava reopened the bulletin. Temporary judicial credentials used a separate directory. She clicked the link. Elijah Mercer filled the screen. 72, retired appellate judge, incoming chief administrative judge for Redmont County. Access level, unrestricted. Effective date, November 16th, 2026. Today. Marcus returned from the elevator. "What is it?" She turned the monitor toward him. "That's him. You knew the seal was real." "I suspected." "You walked away twice." Marcus looked toward the basement door. "Who can release him?" "Anyone who reads." Ava printed the appointment order. A warm sheet slid into the tray. An older woman in a burgundy raincoat approached from the atrium. Helen Brooks, 64, had served 20 years as a bailiff, carrying a silver-handled cane. "Where is Judge Mercer?" Ava looked up. "You know him." Helen studied the portrait. "I know that voice." From below, Elijah said, "Officer Price, return my identification." Helen gripped the cane. That man taught half this courthouse how to speak to frightened people without making them smaller. Marcus took the order. "We need Administrator Cole." They crossed the atrium. Naomi stood beside the covered plaque, holding a folded program. She saw her father's portrait in Marcus's hand. "Where is he?" No one answered. "Where is my father?" Ava swallowed. "Security took him downstairs." The program slipped from Naomi's fingers. At 8:36, Diana Cole emerged from the east corridor in a gray suit. Ava placed the order and visitor log in her hands. Diana read both. "Who authorized this?" "Harlan," Marcus said. "Price carried it out." "Judge Hart is waiting for Mercer to open court." Naomi's voice went quiet. "He was down there while I spoke about my mother." Diana reached for the wall phone. "Samuel, do not begin the session. We found Judge Mercer." A pause. "No. Come downstairs." In the basement, the lock turned. Nolan entered first with the yellow trespass form. Harlan followed, then stopped when he saw Diana, Helen, Marcus, Ava, and Naomi in the corridor. Helen raised the printed order. "You should have read the name." Harlan's gum stopped moving. Naomi looked past them. Her father stood beneath the buzzing light, the stopped watch beside his phone. Elijah placed the watch in his pocket and lifted his briefcase. Diana held out her hand to Nolan. "His credential. Now." Nolan did not move. Behind them, another printer began producing copies of the appointment order, one warm page after another. Diana kept her hand extended. "His credential, Officer Price." Nolan glanced at Harlan. "I followed procedure," Nolan said. "Then document it." He pulled the card from his shirt pocket and placed it in Diana's palm. One corner was bent. Naomi entered. "Dad," Elijah lifted his briefcase. "I am all right." "You missed the dedication." "I heard it." "From here?" He nodded. The fluorescent tube buzzed. Naomi looked at the molded chair, then at the watch chain disappearing into his pocket. "You kept him here while my mother's name was read upstairs?" Nolan stiffened. He did not identify himself clearly. Elijah said, "I gave you my name, my credential, and the appointment order. You could have said you were the chief judge. I did not know valid identification required a performance. Samuel reached the doorway. Are you able to preside? Yes. You do not have to. Yes, Elijah repeated. I do. Samuel faced Nolan. Remain available. For what? The record. They moved upstairs. Diana walked beside Elijah. Naomi stayed half a step behind. Ava carried the order, while Marcus followed with lowered eyes. Guests still surrounded Ruth's plaque. Applause began when Elijah appeared, then faltered as people noticed the officers behind him and the crease across his wet sleeve. Naomi touched his arm. We can postpone the clinic opening. No, your mother waited long enough. He stopped beneath the brass plaque. Ruth Mercer, legal access advocate. Elijah opened the silver watch. It stopped at 8:17. Naomi saw Ruth's photograph and the folded note. I'll have it repaired. Not yet. A clerk brought his robe. Elijah handed Naomi the coat, revealing the navy suit and burgundy tie. She smoothed the wet shoulder twice before letting go. The courtroom doors opened at 8:49. Attorneys rose. Benches scraped. Nolan entered last, one hand near his badge. Elijah crossed to the bench, but remained standing. He placed the briefcase beside the chair. Before scheduled matters begin, this court will address an incident affecting access to this building. Nolan's hand dropped. Judge Hart will preside over any review involving me. Elijah continued. I will not decide the fate of an officer whose conduct I experienced. Samuel took the center seat. Elijah stepped down and sat beside Naomi in the first row. Diana gave the order to the clerk, who read Elijah's full title aloud. A murmur crossed the gallery. Nolan stared at the elderly man he had sent into the rain. Nothing about Elijah had changed. Silver hair, quiet voice, old briefcase, stopped watch. Only the room now knew how to see him. Samuel asked, Officer Price, do you dispute that you were shown this document? I believed it might be false. Did you verify it? I attempted to. Ava rose. No, Your Honor. Harlan turned toward her. Then we begin with the recordings, the visitor log, and the credential in Administrator Cole's possession, Samuel said. Diana slid the bent card into a clear evidence sleeve. Nolan looked toward Harlan, but the sergeant opened a blank page and lowered his head. Elijah took out the stopped watch. For the first time that morning, Nolan understood that every minute had been preserved. At 9:03 a.m., the clerk sealed the bent credential. Samuel Hart looked over the gallery. This court will recess until an independent reviewer is present. Nolan stood beside the counsel table. I object to the implication that evidence was mishandled. You may object after it is identified, Samuel said. Elijah remained in front, the stopped watch in his palm. Naomi held Ruth's dedication program until the paper softened at the edges. 22 minutes later, Carla Monroe entered. She was 47, a state judicial inspector with close-cropped hair and square glasses. Who touched the visitor log after 8? She asked. Harlan answered first. Routine corrections are permitted. That was not my question. Nolan shifted. I entered the first notation. And who changed it? Neither man spoke. Carla set her watch beside the evidence box. Then we start with video. The recording filled the monitor. Rain blurred the glass. Nolan pointed toward the sidewalk. Elijah stood beneath the awning, coat dark at the shoulders. Naomi looked away as the doors closed. Carla paused the image. Officer Price, what threat did you observe? He refused to comply. With which instruction? To wait outside. That followed his request for verification. He was argumentative. Elijah's recorded voice came low and even. Return my identification. Carla resumed the footage. The briefcase opened. Papers fell. Ruth's photograph landed face down. Marcus covered his mouth. At 8:13:42, the body camera file ended. At 8:18:09, it resumed in the basement corridor. 4 minutes and 27 seconds are missing, Carla said. Battery interruption, Nolan replied. The indicator shows 81%. Device error. Then we inspect it. Harlan shoved his chair back. Inspector, this is becoming theatrical. Carla faced him. A man was held in a windowless room while your log was altered. Facts will make it less theatrical. She opened the visitor record. Elijah's name appeared in gray, then vanished beneath. Visitor left before screening. Ava rose. That is false. He passed the scanner. Who had administrator access? Harlan and Price, Diana said. Harlan's peppermint gum clicked once. The archive showed Nolan typing problem. Another file showed Harlan's credentials used at 8:24 to remove Elijah's name. Nolan turned. You said it was a correction. Harlan did not answer. Carla connected a speaker. The hallway microphone records continuously. Static filled the courtroom, followed by the printer and Harlan's voice. Remove Mercer from the visitor log before administration comes down. Then Nolan. What if they already saw it? Make it look like he never cleared the entrance. The audio stopped. On the monitor, Elijah's hand remained above the counter, waiting for the credential no one had verified. Officer Price, surrender your body camera. Sergeant Harlan, surrender your access card. Neither of you enters the security office without an escort. Nolan's face drained. This is temporary? Carla looked at the missing interval. That depends on what else disappeared during those 4 minutes. Behind her, the evidence printer began producing the complete audit log. The legs of Marcus Shaw's chair scraped across the courtroom floor. Carla Monroe had just placed the restored audit log beside the speaker when Marcus stood. I need to correct the record. Samuel Hart nodded. Come forward. At the witness table, Marcus faced Elijah. I saw the seal on the appointment packet. I recognize the format. At what time? Carla asked. About 8:06. And after Officer Price dismissed you? I went upstairs. Why? My hearing was scheduled. I thought security would verify him. You returned and still walked away. Marcus stared at the seal above the bench. I knew challenging courthouse security could follow me into every room where I worked. I told myself I needed more facts. Elijah spoke quietly. You had enough to ask them to stop. Marcus nodded. I did. His chair scraped again when he sat. Ava took the witness seat next. Her red pen was back in her bun, its cap chewed nearly white. Nolan entered problem before checking anything, she said. When I offered to verify the number, he told me not to undermine him. Had this happened before? Ava glanced at Harlan. He leaned back. Be careful. Samuel touched the gavel. Sergeant, do not address the witness. Ava continued. Visitors who asked questions were marked difficult. Older people were sent outside to cool down. Complaints went to Sergeant Harlan. And then? They disappeared. Helen Brooks rose before Carla called her. Her silver-handled cane clicked at each step. I worked courthouse security for 20 years, she said. I retired because courtesy became something people had to earn. Carla handed her 3 archived complaints. Helen adjusted her glasses. A 78-year-old woman was sent outside in July because she could not hear through the glass. A man using a walker was marked disruptive for asking for a chair. A family was told an interpreter was a privilege. Harlan's jaw tightened. Old complaints prove nothing about this morning. Carla opened the restored report. Rows of names appeared, each ending with the same code beneath Harlan's credentials. "Administrative cleanup," he said. 23 times in 18 months? Security discretion. Why were 17 visitors over 65? He said nothing. Why were 14 listed as low-income litigants? Harlan reached for water. The plastic cup folded in his grip. Nolan turned. "You said those edits were authorized." "They were." "By whom?" Harlan faced the bench. "This hearing concerns one misunderstanding." Carla changed the display. A pattern replaced the log. Complaints filed. Footage shortened. Names removed. Cases closed. "One event can be a mistake," she said. "A repeated method is a system." The ventilation hummed above the benches. Marcus lowered his face. Ava's pen trembled against her hair. 2 deputies by the door moved their hands away from their belts. Elijah opened Ruth's watch. The second hand remained frozen beyond 17. Helen looked at him. "We should have spoken sooner." He closed the case. "Then speak clearly now." Carla lifted another folder from the evidence box. On its cover was the name of a visitor who had never appeared in the official log. The folder bore the name Marlene Givens. Carla opened it. 71 years old. Came to file an emergency housing appeal last March. Helen leaned forward. "I remember her." "She never appeared in the official visitor log," Carla said, "but the backup camera shows her at this checkpoint for 46 minutes. On the monitor, a small woman in a green coat stood beneath the brass clock. Nolan spoke to her, then turned away. Harlan glanced at her papers and pointed toward the exit. "What happened to the appeal?" Samuel asked. Diana checked the docket. "Dismissed for failure to appear." Carla faced Nolan. "Did you know she had a deadline?" She did not explain it clearly. The silent video showed Marlene holding up a stamped notice. Nolan's report called her confused and non-compliant. Elijah watched her gather papers from the floor. "Harlan told me she was trespassing," Nolan said. "You wrote the report," Harlan replied. "You approved it." Samuel raised one hand. "Enough." Carla placed the folder beside the audit log. Then another. A veteran denied entry over service dog paperwork. A father removed after asking twice for an interpreter. An elderly tenant sent to the wrong building until his filing window closed. Harlan stared at the stack. Those were isolated decisions made under pressure. "No," Elijah said. He closed Ruth's watch and rose. "Pressure explains a rushed decision. It does not explain removing names afterward." Harlan's lips parted, but no answer came. Carla read the preliminary findings. Failure to verify valid credentials, unlawful detention, falsification of the visitor log, interference with court access, and false statements during review. Nolan gripped the table. "Am I being terminated?" "You are suspended pending final action," Carla said. "Your certification file will be referred to the state board." "And my badge." Samuel looked to the clerk. A folded square of blue cloth was placed on the table. For several seconds, Nolan did not move. Then he unclipped the badge. Metal touched wood with a small, clean sound. His hand remained beside it, fingers open, as if waiting for someone to reverse the moment. No one did. Harlan's access card followed. Carla announced his removal from supervisory duty and an investigation into every altered complaint under his credentials. He pushed back from the table. "I kept this building moving." Helen's cane struck the floor once. "You kept people out." After the hearing, Nolan found Elijah near Ruth's plaque. The atrium had emptied, leaving only floor polish and bitter coffee. "I was wrong," Nolan said. "About you." Elijah adjusted the bent corner of his credential inside its clear sleeve. Not only about me. I can apologize to the others. Some lost hearings, some lost homes. An apology cannot restore a deadline. Nolan looked toward the security desk. Do you forgive me? Elijah's thumb rested on the stopped watch. Forgiveness is personal, he said. Accountability belongs to the public. Nolan lowered his head. Across the atrium, Carla handed Diana a sealed list containing 23 names. Elijah looked at the courthouse doors. Find every one of them, he said. Then we changed the rules that made them invisible. At 8:10 the next Monday, Elijah stood at the public entrance with a legal pad. Diana Cole had arranged a private meeting upstairs. He moved it to the lobby. If the rules begin at the bench, he said, they begin too late. A carpenter measured the wall beside security. Ava Delgado taped up a temporary sign. Every document must be verified before a visitor is removed. Victor Hale arrived with a canvas folder. 61 and slow-spoken, he had spent 3 decades mediating housing disputes before agreeing to chair the Civilian Oversight Council. You asked for independent review, Victor said. Independent means your office cannot close a complaint. That is why you are here. Diana opened the proposal. Separate entrance for judges, expedited checks, direct contact with administration. Elijah shook his head. No special rescue route. It would prevent this from happening again. To judges. The scanner beeped as an elderly man struggled with a metal cane. A new officer stepped around the desk and steadied the tray without touching him. Elijah watched him pass. Write a rule that protects him, he said. Then it will protect me. They worked at a folding table beside the checkpoint. Each deleted complaint now required 2 signatures and notice to Victor's counsel. Video would be copied to an external archive. Visitors could request a supervisor without being labeled disruptive. Unfamiliar identification had to be verified before anyone questioned a visitor's right to enter. Marcus Shaw joined them with training pages under his coat. I can teach 1 session a month. Ava looked up. On what? Marcus set down the first page. How to intervene before silence becomes permission. Elijah read it, then handed it back. Use the real footage. Marcus swallowed. Including mine? Especially yours. By noon, the security counter had moved 6 feet back, opening space for a public assistance desk. The lobby smelled of sawdust and fresh paint. A printer hummed as Diana produced the procedures in large type. Carla Monroe arrived with the restored cases. 19 of the 23 visitors had been located. 6 filing deadlines could be reopened. 4 required emergency review. And the others? Elijah asked. 2 moved. 1 died in May. Marlene Givens is staying with her sister outside the county. The hammering ceased. Elijah ran his thumb over Marlene's dismissed appeal. We contact the family of the man who died, he said. We do not hide behind the fact that we are late. Victor closed his folder. That sentence should be in the policy. No, Elijah replied. It should be in the work. At 4:40, the permanent sign was mounted beside the doors. Ava peeled away the film, revealing black letters against brushed brass. Dignity is not a security exception. Naomi entered, carrying the repaired silver watch. She held it out, but Elijah did not take it. Tomorrow, he said, at your mother's clinic. She studied the new desk, complaint box, and open path to the elevators. She would have moved the chairs closer together. Elijah looked at the wide gaps between them. Then, we are not finished. As the courthouse lights dimmed, workers lifted the chairs and began arranging them in a circle. 6 months later, at 8:07 on a May morning, Elijah entered the courthouse through the public doors without calling ahead. A new officer stood beside an elderly visitor whose hands shook over a folded notice. "Take your time," the officer said. "We'll check the document before anyone sends you anywhere." Elijah stopped near the scanner. The brass sign beside the desk caught the light. "Dignity is not a security exception." The visitor looked up. "Is this the right place for housing appeals?" "It is," the officer replied. "Someone from the clinic will walk with you." Ava Delgado appeared from the assistant's desk, wearing a supervisor's badge. She brought a chair. "Sit first," she said. "Then we'll fix the filing date." The man lowered himself slowly. Elijah watched Ava turn the notice so they could read it together. "You came unannounced," Diana Cole said behind him. That was the point. She handed him the oversight report. Complaints had fallen by 60%. Every access denial now required written verification, preserved video, and outside review. 19 old cases reopened, Diana said. Marlene Givens received a new hearing. She kept her apartment. And the 4 we could not restore? 2 families accepted settlements. 1 case is pending. The last family asked for an apology in writing. Elijah closed the report. Then write it plainly. At noon, the legal clinic bearing Ruth's name opened again. The chairs formed a circle. Naomi stood beside the plaque while Helen Brooks welcomed visitors, her silver-handled cane against the wall. Marcus Shaw arranged training materials near the entrance. Once a month, he showed employees the footage of the morning he had looked away. "I still hate that part," he told Elijah. "You should." Marcus nodded. "I know." Carla Monroe arrived with the final disciplinary orders. Nolan Price had lost his courthouse position and state certification. He was working in building maintenance while completing mandated ethics and de-escalation training. Wade Harlan had resigned before termination, but the state barred him from supervisory security work and continued reviewing the altered records. "No speeches from either of them," Carla said. "That may be useful," Elijah replied. Naomi approached with the repaired silver pocket watch in both hands. "The jeweler found no broken gear," she said. "A thread from Mom's note caught the movement." Elijah opened the case. Ruth's photograph remained beneath the glass. Behind it, her folded words had been trimmed so they would no longer touch the mechanism. Naomi wound the crown. The second hand moved. For several beats, neither spoke. "I'm sorry I wasn't beside you that morning," Elijah said. "You were trying to make sure it didn't happen to someone else." "I was still not beside you." Naomi looked toward Ruth's empty chair. "Then stand here now." He did. Near sunset, Elijah returned to the main courtroom for Victor Hale's public oversight meeting. Ava presented the new access data. Helen read a letter from Marlene. Marcus described the intervention training without asking to be praised. When the meeting ended, Elijah remained by the bench. The room had once known him only after hearing his title. The doors stayed open until the last visitor left. He placed the ticking watch beside the state seal. This time, no minute disappeared. Have you ever witnessed someone being dismissed, delayed, or treated as though their dignity depended on their status? Share what happened in the comments, especially if one quiet decision helped change the outcome. Stories like this matter because systems often change only after ordinary people choose not to look away. Share this story with someone who believes fairness should begin before titles, influence, or authority are revealed. Subscribe for more stories about justice, quiet resilience, accountability, and the reforms that follow when the truth is finally recorded. Your voice can help keep these conversations visible and remind others that respect should never require proof of importance.